Good morning, and thank you for joining me on Delicious by Debbie. And today I am going to make a recipe that a friend gave to me. The lady who cooked for our church camp had just delicious bread, and she made all her breads homemade, whether it was rolls, sweet rolls, just Italian bread, whatever. She made it all from scratch by herself. In fact, here's a picture I wanted to show you. This is her and I one morning. She had gotten up early and made enough cinnamon rolls for several hundred people. This is obviously not all of them because there were other trays of them, but I just wanted to show you that. She just thinks nothing of whipping up bread and just making it. So I asked her, my husband loved the Italian bread, so she gave me the recipe. In fact, she's the one who gave me this apron that I have on today. And I just thought I would go ahead and make her Italian bread today, and we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully, I know it won't be as good as hers, but we're gonna try. I'm not making the whole recipe because her whole recipe calls for 8 cups of flour. That would make way more bread than my husband and I need, so I'm gonna cut it in half. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with it. And first of all, I need 1.5 cups of warm water, and I have that here. And into that, I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon of yeast, and I'm using just an active dry yeast. So I'm gonna take 1 pack of that and measure and see if it's 1 tablespoon. I think it is, but I'm just gonna be sure because I want 1 tablespoon of yeast. I'm gonna put it into this warm water. Actually, that's not a whole tablespoon, so we'll use part of another one. I want 1 full tablespoon of it. Okay, there's our tablespoon of yeast, and I'll put that into that warm water. And I'm also going to put 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. We're just going to guesstimate that that's 1.5 tablespoons. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. That in here. 1.5 teaspoons. And 1/4 cup of sugar. And we're going to mix that all together, and then we're just going to let that sit and let the yeast activate. This is also a good test to know if your yeast is good or not, because sometimes it can sit in the cupboard or even on the shelf at the store too long and not be good. The date on this is still good, so I'm hoping it'll be okay. So mix this all up, and we're just going to let this sit for a little bit, and then we'll come back and finish the bread. Okay, as you can see, this yeast is good. It has really started to work in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put it into the mixing bowl. And this half of a recipe of this bread calls for 4 cups of flour. But she said you don't always need that much. Sometimes you need more. You just don't want the dough to be sticky. So I'm going to slowly add, put about, maybe 1.5 cups in to start with. Then we'll let this mix and see how it goes. I'm going to add a little more flour. Okay, I switched out the paddle attachment and put the dough hook on. So I'll put some more flour in. And we'll let this go and see how it does. It's still too sticky, so I'm going to put the rest of this flour in and see if I need any more other than this. This was 4 cups. So we'll let this mix now. This is done, and it is perfect. I hope you can see it. I'll turn it on for a minute so you can see how the dough is doing. It's not sticking to the bowl. It's not sticky to my hand. I can touch it, and it's not so sticky that it sticks to my fingers. So this is done beating, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the bowl that I'm going to let it rise. I have this big Fiesta ware bowl that I like to let my dough rise in. It's big, it's heavy. I turned my oven to the lowest temperature it would go. I think it's 125. Left it on for about 8 minutes and then turned it off. Just enough to warm the oven up to help my bread to rise. And then I also put this bowl in there and let it get warm and then sprayed it. I have sprayed it. So I'm ready to put the dough in here. Looks like this will probably make 2 loaves, which would be fine. 4 cups of flour. I wasn't sure how much that would make, so just turned it over on itself. I'm going to put a clean towel on top of that and let it rise until it's doubled in size. So obviously it won't fill this bowl up because it's not that big of a piece of dough. And I'll come back when it's time to make it into a loaf. So I let my dough rise until it's double in size. So it's time to go ahead and put it out on the board here, the countertop, and I'm going to put some flour down. There's the dough. And I'm just going to knead it a little bit, then cut it in half and make 2 loaves out of this. I'm just going to knead it. It has a really nice texture. Okay, cut this in close to in half as we can. Hopefully that's in half. And take this piece. Put a little more flour out. I think I'll use my rolling pin. Just roll it out a little bit, get any air bubbles out of it. Here's some air bubbles. And I'm just gonna roll it into a loaf. Okay, and I'm going to put that loaf right here in the middle of this pan that I've lined with a piece of parchment paper. I'm going to let that rise now. After it rises, I'll take a sharp knife and slash it. So let's let those rise. I'll cover these, put them in the oven where it's still a little bit warm, and we'll let these rise and then slash them and bake them. My loaves of bread, I let them rise and they're ready to put in the oven now, and I'm just cutting some slashes in them. The bread does expand some as it bakes. Sometimes it will crack, and sometimes this is done just to be artistic about it, I guess. Okay, my 2 loaves of Italian bread are done. They're wonderful. I melted a little bit of butter, probably 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to add to that a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Just shake a little bit in there. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic powder. And a little bit of Italian seasoning, just a little. Okay, and I'm going to mix that all up. And I'm going to brush it on these while they're hot. It smells so good. Let it cool before we slice it and have it for supper tonight. Thank you for watching. The bread is cool enough that I can cut it, and I just can't wait anymore. I've got to try it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of this bread. And I like the heel, but I'm going to try piece after the heel. Let you see this from the front here. There's the loaf I cut into. And here's the piece that I am going to put some butter on and give it a try. That is delicious. This bread recipe is worth the time that it takes to make it. It is delicious. I hope that you'll try it.